Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder it is time to have a look at another devlog for update 193, and this time we're having a look at the A129 Mangusta. This is going to be the first Italian helicopter that is coming to the game, and yes, it is premium and it's going to be rank 6 as well. It seems like this is going to come into the game in the same vein as the AH-1S, the Japanese helicopter, which was added to the game a while back in its premium form. You can see the Kisarazu right here, whereas this Italian aircraft will obviously come into the Italian tree. There's no mention of an Italian helicopter tech tree, so my feeling is right now, at least just looking at this devblog, that this is going to be a standalone addition to the game, meaning that when you pre-order it or when you order it, the research that you get won't really go towards anything, but on top of this, there will be, you know, an Italian helicopter tech tree down the line, which is incredibly good. You know, it's the fact is, if every nation gets a helicopter tech tree, then we finally have at least some more parity in the game. One of the problems that I brought up at the start of this year was if you looked between the nations, it was very hard to justify playing any other nation which wasn't Germany, Soviet, or American, because they had all of the tools and all of the toys. Over this year, we have had additions to each nation which make each nation more, parable to each other, meaning that they're more similar and have more similar mechanics, and also, some unique things for each nation which don't throw them too far away from the rest. The Mangusta, even though it is a premium, is one of these steps in the right direction in order to give each nation its own, its own part of the helicopter game in War Thunder, and therefore can only be seen as a good addition, apart from the fact that there isn't a helicopter tech tree to back it up, at least from what we've seen here. So for me, you've already heard the rant that I did about the KA-50. That also applies to this machine. So don't get me wrong. But the fact that we are increasing parity in the game overall is a good thing. It's as simple as that. So let's talk about the Mangusta, where it comes from, and all of this wonderful stuff. In the 80s, the Italians wanted to build a helicopter, and as usual back then, and even today, if you have a look at the French and the Germans, normally countries, especially allied countries, work together on specific projects to try and build, specific things together. Now, there was a project in the 80s from the Germans and the Italians as a combined effort to try and make some kind of light attack helicopter. Now, unfortunately, this fell through. So therefore, the Italians took it on themselves to build their own attack helicopter. And what they ended up creating was the A129 Mangusta. But before creating the Mangusta, they wanted to actually try some slightly different things, such as use the A109, which is this machine here, the Augusta Westland 109, and they wanted to use it as a platform to mount, armament to it, which is kind of hilarious, since, of course, this is much more of just a transport helicopter. You can see here the Swedish did create a militarized version of it with a few wonderful guns out the side, but overall, I don't think this would be too useful when it comes to, the military side. So instead of just mounting stuff on an A109, they worked on building a completely new aircraft. And they did, in the form of the A129. Now, the one that we're getting in the game is an international version, but it's not the international version. Now, this is kind of confusing, and I'll go into it in a bit because I forgot to mention something. So we actually also had a server update today, and the economy and BR changes that we've talked about over the last week or so, they're now in the game. That will have all changed. And also, a nice little thing. So, in combined simulator battles, the SL award for capturing zones has been reduced by 50%. The awards for destruction of enemy vehicles has been increased by 30%. And supporting in destruction hits critical awards have been increased by 50%. So, in simulator battles in ground, pretty much you are now, it is favored to go after enemy vehicles instead of caps. So, just make sure you understand that so you can change your playstyle in order to get some more Silver Lions. The next thing is RP bonuses for RB and SB now extend also into modification research. So for example, if a player receives 1000 RP in the past for modification research after an RB battle and 1300 for vehicle research, the player will now receive 1300 RP for both categories. So they're increasing RP across the board for members, for everybody. When it comes to modification research, this is only a positive if you are, researching at a good rate. So for me, these are two great changes alongside the BR changes, which, some I agree with, some I disagree with, and the economy changes are all done by a robot, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, make sure to check out the economy changes, especially if you have a specific, specific vehicle you like. Back to the Mangusta. So they developed it, the A129, and then they later made an export model. The export model known as the international version of the A129. Now, when I had a look at the international version, which this is supposed to be, by the way, one thing that was noted was that it could carry Stingers. And I was like, okay, so why can't this one carry Stingers? Because one of the things about this A129 in War Thunder is that it's coming in pretty much as just a ground pounder. It can carry ATGMs, it can carry stuff like Hellfires and what seem to be TOWs as well. And then it has rockets and it has, some machine guns, mainly the one on the front, and also some extra in some little pods if you want to bring them. But it doesn't have any air-to-air missiles. They don't exist for this machine. So it was kind of weird reading about this international version of the Mangusta and then basically just looking at this plane, at this helicopter, and going, well, it doesn't have any of these extra things. It turns out, at least in the comments of this article, and also through a little bit of research, that this isn't the international version. This is the prototype of the international version. So instead of, and the way that you can tell is the international version of the Mangusta has a 5-bladed propeller. Right, now this thing, it only has a 4-bladed propeller. So it's very easy to see the difference, right, between the two. And what that basically means is because of the 4-bladed propeller, it is the prototype version. So yeah, that's basically it when it comes to this. And you can see here, its ordnance is including 8 ATGMs, either TOW2s or Hellfires, or 76 rockets, and 2 12.7mm gun pods. You can see the gun pods right here. They stick out like a sore thumb. Like they just look really odd. But I'm guessing the general loadout is going to be this that people take, just because of the size of it. On top of the fact that it's an international version, it has access to 1300 horsepower of engines in both of them, so 2600 overall. It's got decent beefy engines, but it's very similar in power to a lot of the other helicopters that we have in game. Like, the thing is, at the end of the day, when it comes to this, there's very limited design space when it comes to helicopters, at least if you take away the minutia of the helicopters. And one thing I do want to point out, though, is the aiming system. So the aiming system is here, right? It's right on the nose. And one of the really nice things about something like the Eurocopters is the Eurocopters, if you've had a look, their aiming system is up here. So near the propeller. Now, what this means is you can basically hill peak without having to let your helicopter be seen. You can just poke this up in gunner view, and the only thing that would be visible from the enemy point of view is this helicopter blade area here. So you can shoot ATGMs over hills and not be shot back, which is really important for a machine. There is also this on stuff like the German one, I believe, as well, if I remember, and it's actually above the blades. So this is even better, right? So you can really sit behind a hill and be able to shoot stuff. Unfortunately, this isn't the case for the Mangusta. Instead, what it has is the gunner sight right here, so you're going to have to be fully exposed to be able to use it to target enemies on the ground. And with the fact that it has TOWs and also Hellfires, that does give it a good ordnance to be able to ground pound, but at the same time defending itself. Only having a 12.7mm machine gun I don't think is good enough, especially now that we're in the times of stuff like the G-Links with Stingers, of stuff like the AH-1Z with its AIM-9Ls, obviously the Iglas running around. Everything at this level is going to have air-to-air missiles, which is going to crucify it, including the Eurocopters, which all, of course, have Stingers and AIM-92s as well. The other thing is looking at its general armaments. My guess is it's going to be a very similar BR to the Kisarazu, since the Kisarazu has this 8 setup of TOWs on it that you can see. The TOW, it has access to the TOWs 4s, which, you know, you can carry 8 of. So for me, looking at it, this looks like a 9.7 or a 10.0 vehicle without air-to-airs. So in ground forces, you know, in ground realistic, it's probably going to do all right. It's got the ground pounding ability. The only issue it's going to have is, of course, dealing with some of the missile guided AA, which we have around the place. But if you can deal with that, and if you can get off a few shots, you're generally going to come out, you know, pretty well. The idea is that you trade more than 1 for 1, and you're able to have a positive effect on the game. And it being premium, you're going to get boosted rewards and also reduced repair cost. So overall, it's going to be great for, you know, this machine in general. The other thing to also mention is helicopters for me in game are a addition to your ground forces. I understand that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people like helicopters because of the helicopter event, right? You can play this. Generally, I don't factor this into my thoughts on a vehicle, just because it isn't a large, you know, a massive event, and there isn't a ton of people playing it all the time. So instead, what I do is I look at it from the point of view of what does the ground forces lineup look like, and how good is it? So let's say it comes in at 9.7, right? And therefore, you're going to run it with your 10.0s. Italy has an insane ground 10.0 lineup. You know, it has 2 of the Arietes, which of course have gone up now to 10.3. So let's just say an insane 10.3 lineup. You've got the 2 Arietes, which are incredibly good, amazingly pen rounds, decent armor, good speed, pretty much all you want from a European MBT. You got the Mistral, which is arguably the best AA in the game because of the insane missiles that it has. On top of it, you've got the Automatic, which is the best hybrid vehicle in game when it comes to top tier, with its, you know, APF SDS and also its HE, you know, its proximity shells. You got the Ariete P, just in case you don't want to use the other 2 Arietes, and you got the Romor at 9.7, and the Romor itself has access to scouting now and thermals. So this thing is insane. Now, let's say it comes in at 9.7. You don't even have to run it with the 10.3s. You can run it with the Automatic, the Ariete P, and the Centauro Romor. That's an insane lineup already. The Italians are blessed at top tier with this wonderful set of vehicles, and adding to it with this helicopter is only a positive. Like, it's... Thank you, dear. It's only a positive when it comes to adding it into the game for it. They also have, when it comes to the planes, they have a decent air superiority fighter in the form of the G91YS, and I suppose technically a decent ground pounder in the F-84, but generally at top tier it's going to get smashed. So for me, this lineup for Italy at top tier is just looking banger. And to add on top of it the Mangusta as an extra option, or maybe as an initial option that you take into the air before you spawn in your Ariete, sounds really good to me. Like, the only downside, as we've talked about, is that it can't really defend itself against a lot of the new helicopter premiums that have come in. and that's, well, kind of sad, but unfortunately it's because of the system setup, and as I said, I've already talked about it in the KA-50 video. So if you want to see my general opinion on what I think of these top tier helicopters, please go and watch that video. It is a beautiful helicopter as well, very shiny, very nice, and well, you can pre-order it now, as we talked about. You can get the Mongoose decal, this is what it looks like. Really lovely decal, annihilating what looks like a cobra, I think. I'm not very good in the snakes, so yeah. It is at least in US $44.99, and you get 2,000 GE with it and premium account for 15 days. Now, the premium account for 15 days and 2,000 GE is generally worth about $15, so this machine is worth about $30 USD. And you also get the Fearless title. You don't get any skins with this one, which is kind of sad, but, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can see it here with its, you know, its missiles and also its rockets that it's able to hold. Another thing to also add is there isn't a pre-order pack for it in the MTCA. So the MTCA came out, and it's actually gone up to 9.0 right now because it seems to be performing better than the L44 and also the AMX-30 Super, which I find insane. But normally what they do, like they did it with the KA-50, where you can get a bundle with the helicopter and a ground vehicle. That isn't the case this time. You only have the pre-order for the Mangusta, and that is it. So unfortunately, you can't buy them together. Hopefully, in the future, a pack like that will be available. Otherwise, you know, you can't get your special offers and stuff, you know, and get your nickels on the dollar back. So yeah. I'm happy that Italy is getting its first helicopter. The fact that it's premium, I mean, we've already seen this with the H1S. I generally don't like the idea of a single premium being in a tech tree, but this isn't something new to Italy. The Leoncello existed and the M26 existed for an incredibly long time before the Italian ground forces were added to the game. So hopefully with the Mangusta, this is a sign for things to come with Italy when it comes to the helicopter tech tree in general. Hopefully it's here soon, and on top of it, because of the fact that it seems like it's going to be alone, like the H1S, it would be nice in a way to have a system for machines like this to be able to gather research, and then when the helicopter the helicopter tech tree comes to the game, then you can drop it on the helicopters that are added in. That would be nice as a system. I understand why they don't do it, because it increases the grind, but at the same time, it would mean that you're working towards something, even though that thing right now is invisible. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Mopar 1969, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, and Elove Goats, and of course Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.